In the 20th century, the United States has defeated fascism, Nazism, and communism. Now a different threat challenges our world: radical Islamic terrorism. We cannot let this evil continue. Nor can we let the hateful ideology of radical Islam, its oppression of women, gays, children, and non-believers be allowed to reside or spread within our own countries. But we will not, remember this, defeat it with closed eyes or silenced voices. Anyone who cannot condemn the hatred, oppression, and violence of radical Islam lacks the moral clarity to serve as our president.
It's time for Radical Truth with Tony Gurley.
Why do the actions of some Muslims seem more Christian, quote-unquote, than Islamic? That is the interesting question that we're asking and answering in this episode of Radical Truth. I have a number of examples to share with you, not only from posts that Radical Truth has made, but also some personal experiences that I've had with Muslims myself. I'm going to get into explaining the stack of books behind me here in a moment, but first it's important for you to know up front that Jesus loved his enemies and Muhammad killed his enemies. Also, Islam teaches that every single Muslim is supposed to strive to emulate Muhammad, and thankfully, many do not. That is a good thing, especially when you read Islam's primary sources and you know what Muhammad did and what he taught his followers to do. Now, if you want to learn more about Jesus, all you need to do is read the New Testament of the Bible to learn what Jesus said, the commands that he gave to his followers, and so on. And now when it comes to Islam, we need to look to a few different sources to get an overall accurate picture and understanding of the life of Muhammad. Now, the stack of books behind me here, up on top is the Noble Quran. And many non-Muslims, maybe Christians or whoever, have read through the Quran to try to understand, okay, why do Muslims do what they do? And some Muslims in the world, actually, I should say many Muslims, they only look to the Quran as well. And that's mainly because they don't understand Arabic. They will memorize the Quran even though they don't understand what they're saying. They think that it pleases Allah. They memorize it in order to recite the daily prayers and so on. But many Muslims in the world do not understand Arabic, and they rely upon the imam in their mosque to explain the Quran, and they rely upon the imam to share hadith when necessary. And again, the hadith is the collection on bottom here, and this is the collection of the things that Muhammad said and did. This is Sahih al-Bukhari, the most revered hadith collection according to Sunni Muslims, which is the majority of Muslims in the world. Now, in between the two here, between the Quran on top and the hadith on bottom, we have the life of Muhammad. This is the oldest biography of Muhammad, also known as the Sirah. Now, there are a number of old versions you can get, or not old versions, but just old biographies. They're different, written by different people, but this is the oldest. It's not politically correct in any way, and that's good because you're getting a non-watered down, non-sugar-coated presentation of the life of Muhammad. So Islamists in the West will not recommend this version. They don't even mention it. They'll want to, talk about some more modern day, watered down, sugar coated Walt Disney version, biography of Muhammad pretty much. So again, these here are the primary sources of Islam. There are other ones too, like the Taqi, the Al-Tabari, the books on Islamic law, etc. But you need the Quran to make sense of the Hadith. You need the Hadith to make sense of the Quran. And again, you get example of Muhammad himself, the Sunnah, in the Sirah or biography as well. So the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sirah, this is where you find the Sunnah, the example of Muhammad himself, and that is what Muslims are supposed to strive to emulate. And again, it's a good thing that many do not. Now, let's get into some specific examples of what Radical Truth has seen out there and actually shared on social media. Here is one story that was from Barnabas Fund, I believe. The name of the article is Elderly Nigerian Imam give an award for saving 262 Christians from Muslim extremists. This is what the article says. An elderly Muslim leader who saved the lives of hundreds of Christians fleeing a murderous attack by Muslim Fulani militants in Nigeria received an award recognizing his courage on the 17th of July. Imam Abu Bakr Abdullahi was given the U.S. International Religious Freedom Award for selflessly risking his own life on the 23rd of June 2018 to, quote, save members of another religious community. When the militants attacked at least 10 villages in the Barkin Ladi local government area in Plateau State, killing scores of Christians and burning homes in a 2-day rampage. The 83-year-old imam sheltered 262 fleeing Christians, hiding women and children in his home and the men in the mosque in Niger village. Abdullahi then confronted the gunmen and refused them access, insisting everyone inside was Muslim. He said later that he wanted to help because 40 years previously, Christians in the area had allowed Muslims to build the mosque. He said it was the first time he had experienced such, quote, an ugly incident in all the years that Muslims had lived in a neighboring village to the Christian farmers. Now, great story here, right? I mean, that was an awesome thing that this man did. He, as a Muslim, actually lied to other Muslims, telling them that everyone inside was Muslim. Now, this was posted on the Radical Truth Facebook page on August 6th, 2019. And by the way, if you want to find an old post, all you do is go to Facebook on probably on the left or right, wherever it says photos, click on photos, and it'll have a photo for every single news story that's been posted. So go back to August 6, 2019, you can find this one. Now, here's the commentary that was given with the news story. Great story. However, let us explain the correct and incorrect ways to interpret it, beginning with the latter. So first here, incorrect way. Wow, see, Islam is a religion of peace. Because of the fundamental teachings of Muhammad, this imam saved Christians because that is what Muhammad taught his followers to do, especially after he gained many followers and much power. Now, going to the correct way to interpret it, just as Oskar Schindler, although he was a Nazi, saved more than 1,000 Jews, this imam, although he is a Muslim, saved a couple hundred Christians. However, in both scenarios, their tender conscience took precedence, and that is what motivated them to do what they did. In other words, their actions were in spite of their ideology, not because of it. So again, this post was made on the Radical Truth Facebook page on August 6th, 2019. Now, next post, or next thing that we're talking about here, is actually, I'm going to share with you a movie trailer of a documentary that is now available. You can find it on Amazon. You can pay for the download, or you can buy it digitally, or I'm sure you can buy probably the DVD as well. I'm going to turn the volume down low, and I'm going to narrate for our podcast listeners who can't see the screen. I'm going to read the subtitles that are in that trailer. This is Syria 2016. A country ravaged by war. Found salvation in one secret hospital. And her. I'm the hospital's manager and a doctor in the children's department. Hospitals don't rely on one person, it's teamwork. Is that a warplane over us? Yes, it is. Don't look so frightened. It will be all right. Don't worry, dear. We don't have anesthesia, but we have music. Can you imagine? It didn't say that. That was my commentary. It's the story of a doctor who defied oppression. Women should stay at home and not work. No one can tell me what to do or where to work. We found that if we vote for Dr. Amani, the hospital will run well. Should we tell her she should stay home? That doesn't make sense at all. and risked her life to save thousands. Whatever they do, we will never give up. Beneath the hell above, she was the light below. The Cave. So again, this is the name of the documentary, and you can find it on Amazon. Now, just a couple of things real quick in that you read there. Okay, obviously, it's like a feel-good type of explanation of what happened here. But from a Christian mindset, from a Christian worldview, it said in there, a country ravaged by war found salvation in one secret hospital and her. Okay, Muslims need to know, that has nothing to do with the true salvation that's available only in Jesus Christ. And of course, she can't save anyone. Only Jesus can save. So, you have to get nitpicky here with the explanation that's in the documentary, again, from a Christian worldview. Salvation itself, real salvation, is not found in the hospital or her. And at the end there, beneath the hell above, she was the light below. Now, number one, beneath the hell above. Okay, hell is a real place, and we don't want to downplay it by, the many times people say, oh, it's hell on earth, oh, it was like hell, or, they'll kind of downplay it by saying something in this world is like hell or whatever. Hell is a real place, and people will end up there because they've sinned against God, and that's why we, of course, need Jesus. Now, it says she was the light below. Folks, Jesus is the light of the world. And everyone needs to know that. Muslims need to know that. So anyway, just some quick commentary there on the wording in the trailer itself. But this post was made on August 31st, 2019 on the Radical Truth Facebook page, and this is what the post said. It says, "This looks like an excellent documentary. It's important to keep in mind that Muslims are victims of the greatest lie in the world called Islam. However, they are still human beings who are made in the image of God and whom Jesus Christ died for. Being a Muslim does not mean that they are incapable of emotion, loving and caring for people, having a tender conscience, etc. Because of that, we can reach them with the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and show them the love of Christ as well. After all, the majority of Muslims are not experts on Islam, and thus for many, Islam is simply all they know as far as a religious upbringing. And if Islam is not their main focus in life, they, like many non-Muslims, simply want to live their life, raise a family, etc. They want to know what's true, but they're distracted by the lie of Islam. The gospel message that Christians have is the only hope for Muslims. The doctor featured in this movie trailer obviously cares for people and sacrifices much for them. As explained in a previous post, it's important to keep in mind the correct way of interpreting actions like this, especially when it involves Muslims caring for Christians. And of course, that is in reference to the earlier story with the imam. Folks, when we come back after the break, we're going to continue on with another example, as well as some personal examples that I've had with interactions with Muslims myself.
Hi, I'm Joe Carey with Radical Truth Ministry, helping Christians reach Muslims with the gospel. How do you get a conversation with a Muslim started? One method I like to use is what I call icebreaker questions, which are non-confrontational and open-ended. Here's an example. I'll ask, so why are you a Muslim instead of a Buddhist or a Christian or any other religion? What attracted you to Islam? This does two things. First, it offers you a chance to get to know your Muslim friend at a very personal level, his or her background, spiritual journey, and so forth. And depending on the response, you'll know what questions to ask further. And almost every time after sharing with you, the question will come back to you. So, why are you a Christian? And since you've honored your Muslim friend by listening to her story, she will reciprocate and listen to you explain why you are a Christian. And I encourage you to do so with all the passion you can muster. You can find more about sharing with Muslims at our website at radicaltruth.net. I'm Joe Carey for Radical Truth Ministry.
Hello everyone, this is Tony Gourlay, Vice President, Speaker, and Trainer at Radical Truth. Our mission is to equip the body of Christ with the training necessary to effectively engage Muslims with the gospel of Jesus Christ. At Radical Truth, we proclaim truth, share the gospel, and expose Islam. Whether it's through a church sermon, individual talk, weekend seminar, or in-depth training course, we inform, educate, and equip people in the areas of evangelism, apologetics, and Islam. We also reach many people online via our website and social media pages, and through educational videos as well. Last but not least, as you can see, I'm here in the studio where we record our podcast and TV show. That allows us to share the gospel and inform, educate, and equip people on a global scale. Rather than seeing Muslims as our enemies, we see them as people made in the image of God, whom Jesus Christ died for. However, Muslims have a false view of God, a false view of Jesus, and they don't know or understand the gospel. Therefore, we see all Muslims as victims of the lie of Islam. And as Christians, we're the only ones who can bring them the message that will set them free. I want to personally ask you to partner with me and Radical Truth to support our work. You can do so by doing two things. First, regularly pray for our ministry as we continue to reach the lost and equip the found. Pray that God would give us wisdom in all that we do, and that He would bless our efforts for His glory. Also, pray for the salvation of 1.6 billion Muslims, the largest unreached people group in the world. The second thing you can do is give regular financial gifts. As a 501c3 Christian ministry, we depend upon God to provide our monthly financial support. And He provides through people like you who realize the need for this vital work. Your financial gifts allow us to continue our full-time effort to proclaim truth, share the gospel, and expose Islam. To donate, simply visit radicaltruth.net. Thank you so much for your prayers and financial support. This is Tony Gourlay with Radical Truth.
Paul writes to Timothy, he says in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 25 and 26, he says, "Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Perhaps God will change those people's hearts and they will learn the truth. Then they will come to their senses and escape from the devil's trap, for they have been held captive by him to do whatever he wants." See, Muslims are being held captive by the enemy of this world, by the enemy of God. We're the only ones that can bring them the message that will set them free.
This is Radical Truth with Tony Gourlay.
Folks, if you've not done so yet, be sure to visit radicaltruth.net. Sign up for our newsletter to get the inside information that is not put on social media. Also, to get our videos, you can go to YouTube or BitChute, subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon to get notifications about new videos. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and we are growing all the time as far as getting onto more platforms. So make sure that you subscribe, let people know, take links from social media and share them with people, point people to our website, because from our website, you'll find all the different platforms that we're on, and continue to share this balanced information where we proclaim truth, share the gospel, and expose Islam. Before the break, we talked about a couple examples of Muslims' actions seeming more like Christian than Islamic. Here is another one here. This is a more recent story, but it was put on our social media as well. Oshkosh West student honored for bravery at State of the State. This news article said, an Oshkosh West student who helped her fellow students find safety in a mosque during a stabbing attack on a school resource officer was honored during the governor's State of the State address Wednesday. Governor Tony Evers recognized Dua Ahmad during his speech. He said, "People like Dua, who, when a gunshot rang out in the halls of her high school, ran to the nearby mosque where her father works and took more than 100 students with her to provide them shelter and cover. Thank you, Dua, for your courage and bravery." It says here, students ran to the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community Mosque, where security cameras caught Dua leading the way. She said, "I knew the code, ran in, punched the code, and let everyone in." Another example here of a Muslim who is actually loving her neighbor, something that Jesus taught. And of course, above and beyond that, he said to love your enemies as well. Now, I think that part of the explanation for this story here in particular, as you can see here, it says Ahmadiyya Muslim Community Mosque, as it said in the story. The Ahmadiyya is a specific sect of Islam that isn't very big. Muslims overall, you're talking 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. Ahmadiyya makes up about 10 to 20 million at the most. Maybe a little bit higher, but that's the kind of the average number that most people will give if you look online to find out what the size of that community is. Now, the Ahmadiyya sect it originated in the late 1800s. It's a very small amount of Muslims in the world, so they're even more of minority than Shias are, which obviously is the biggest minority. But Ahmadiyya is even smaller. Now, this may be a new term for you. You might be thinking, oh, I've never heard of someone who's Ahmadi Muslim. You probably have, actually. And if you have read the book, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus by Nabil Qureshi, that's what he was. He was an Ahmadiyya Muslim. And as you read in there, he was surprised when he read Islam's primary sources. He couldn't believe what they said about Muhammad and what he actually did. And this, of course, is one of the keys to opening up the eyes of many Muslims, is letting them know what Muhammad did. It's only one aspect, because again, the gospel is what saves. And in this is the over 500,000 copies sold, third edition of Nabil's book. And in this, you'll read how David Wood was someone who God used to reach Nabil with the gospel. And again, third edition has some bonus content in there, so make sure you get that. But yeah, he was Ahmadiyya Muslim, and again, they are a very small group in the world. Now, it's interesting because I myself have had a number of interactions with Muslims that have been surprising as well. But I think it will be very encouraging to people to hear these. Now, for example, this hadith collection here on the bottom, again, Sahih al-Bukhari, this is a specific collection that I wanted to get, and I couldn't find it anywhere online. Folks, I looked through online bookstores throughout the US. I looked even in Europe, the UK. Nobody had this version of Sahih al-Bukhari. And I ended up contacting a Muslim-owned store who also had books on Islam. I called them up, and this was years ago. I called them up and I said, hey, do you have Sahih al-Bukhari? They said, yeah. And I said, okay, who's the publisher? And many people have Dar al-Islam, and Dar al-Islam is a well-known publisher. But folks, just in general, what you want to do when you want to get Islamic sources is get preferably pre 9/11, okay? Because post 9/11 stuff, especially in the last 10, 12 years, has been watered down, sugar-coated, edited, and all that. So you want to get as old of sources as you can. Pre 9/11 is best, but if you can't do that, you want to get 9/11 through 2010, maybe 12. And Dar al-Islam, again, is a very popular publisher. This one here is a different publisher. Has extra stuff in here, not in the hadith itself, but they're not edited. But then also it has some bonus content in the beginning, though, and other places. So anyway, this is the collection I was looking for, and amazingly, looking at all those online places, no one had it. And then I find a Muslim-owned store who had it. So I said, okay, save it for me. I went in, and I was so excited to get this hadith collection. And the owner there, he'd never seen me before, obviously, and he said, oh, are you Muslim? And I said, no, I'm a Christian. And he was like dumbfounded, like, why would a Christian want to read a Islamic primary source of hadith, right? Because he knows even a lot of Muslims don't read the hadith. And that just started a relationship and conversation with him and with other workers at his store there. And I mean, just that day, I think we talked for like an hour, myself with him and with even a customer who came in. I started talking about evidence for Christianity, and of course, I was confident when I was explaining it, right? And I mentioned the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the owner like kind of bumped the customer. It's like what is he talking about? Like the Muslim owner was in doubt about Islam just because of the confidence that I had and the information that I had. So anyway, that started it off. And then I'd gone into that store a number of times over the years. I went in another time, and I was talking with one of the employees there who I'd known, visiting there before. And I was talking about evidence for Christianity, and a Muslim woman comes in, and she had shador, a head covering, body covering. And I say to him, I said something, and I'm like, oh, something, the Bible. And she turns around with an attitude, and she's like, what Bible? Now, this guy, just in general, he kind of looks like the Muslim terrorist from the movie True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I look at him, and the look on his face, he's like looking at her like he's ready to take her head off. and I'm starting to explain to her now the evidence for Christianity, and his respect for me had grown ever since that first time that he and I met, and he loved seeing me. He was excited when he saw me in the store, and we talked a lot, and here he is a Muslim, and she's a Muslim, very conservative at that, and yet he's mad at her for her talking to me the way that did. Another example of this is another time I went in the store, and it was during Ramadan, and the owner, who I obviously had interacted with numerous times, he was there, and then a Muslim was there, and this was during Ramadan. He's sitting there in the store, almost like in a prideful, like, look at me, look how strong I am. It's the middle of Ramadan, middle of the day, and I'm here in a grocery store, temptation all around me, and I'm just sitting here, not eating or anything like that. So I start talking with someone about Christianity, and this guy comes and starts interacting with me as well. And he kind of raises his voice a little bit, which some Muslims will do because they think, oh, whoever's louder is like winning the argument or winning the debate or whatever. So, and then it's the store owner who tells this Muslim, and the store owner is Muslim himself, he points to me and says, hey, he knows what he's talking about. He buys books here. He knows what he's talking about. So again, I have a Muslim interacting with another Muslim standing up for me, who he knows is a Christian. So folks, these are just a few examples of personal interactions that I've had with Muslims. And as I've mentioned in previous episodes, the key to reaching Muslims is you simply making an effort. And of course, as a Christian, and knowing what you believe and why you believe it, having evidence to back up Christianity when necessary, and having some knowledge about Islam to can be conversant about when necessary is what you need. You don't need to be a scholar on Islam and have a PhD in order to interact with Muslims and share the gospel with them, which is the power of God into salvation. And the gospel is the main thing. However, you need to be able to defend Christianity when necessary. And this isn't just when you're talking with Muslims, this is just in general. And guess what? When you learn evidence for Christianity, objective evidence, not just subjective opinion, this will build your confidence personally in your own life, growing in your relationship with God, but again, allow you to defend the faith at the same time. Folks, we also have tools to help you do this. Again, we have our 20-hour Understanding Islam, Apologetics to Islam training series, not just the 6 DVD set, which is 5 DVD discs plus a DVD, which is technically like a CD-ROM. It's for a computer. Tons of resources, old stuff to read that's very hard to find. It's also available on an official Radical Truth flash drive. Now, we have a suggested donation of $25 for either one of these, but we will mail that anywhere in the U.S., and that $25 suggested donation includes shipping and handling as well. So, folks, we have the resources for you to help you reach Muslims, but the most important thing is the gospel itself. Make an effort, ask God, use me to reach Muslims, and he will use you for his glory. So, share this episode with other people, share the social media, share the sites and all the platforms. Help get this information out to people, and we'll talk with you next time on Radical Truth.